Hey, what's up, guys? I'm David,
I'm Steve.
and today we're just going to be giving some free hair transplant advice, which is kind of what we usually do. But that's today we thought we'd kind of start the video before we get other questions from you guys who have rung the notification bell and are here with just offering advice to people that have like don't know anything about hair transplants, like me when I just went through the yellow pages searching for the keyword hair transplant to try and find a surgeon. I knew nothing about um, hair transplants. So ask your questions, we'll answer those, but we thought we'd just start off by offering a little hair transplant advice. What happens like if a guy comes in here, he knows nothing about FUT, FUE, DHI, any of this stuff. He's just like, I'm losing my hair. What am I going to do?
Yeah, David, we get that all the time. I mean, a lot of people, they actually do still go, well, they have to go to Google and whatnot anyway to find, they're definitely going to go to the internet, but they're kind of green. And before they go and start to get in this real deep research, kind of the stuff that we put out there online, they want some good advice and they want to search out a doctor who's a specialist that can give them some advice. But the one thing they all have in common, obviously, is that they all have some sort of hair loss. A lot of these guys have very little hair loss, and they're all asking the right questions, such as, hey, I want to get ahead of this. I want to make sure I don't end up like my dad. And I want to end up like I don't want to end up like my grandfather. But usually it comes out of, one of those wonderful friends that tease the guy because he's starting to lose his hair. Or the sad stories, of course, that kind of hit home for me are the really young people, men and women, that are, let's just say, turning into 20, 21, and they start to see that their hair's changing. So I think that advice for the newbie or the newcomer would be to absolutely seek out someone that really knows what they're talking about and get some advice.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I think like if you've not dealt a lot in the medical field, like we're so our perspective is so skewed to the average person, and that's like it's not our fault. It's just that we've kind of been doing this kind of thing for so long. I think your average person doesn't even realize that like how much of a specialist a surgeon needs to be in order for you really to go to them. I'll give you an example. My brother, he recently got a nose job, and so he in the city he lives in, it's like a city, I think it's a Chapel Hill or something like that, like where he was living at the time. He doesn't live there anymore, but it's like a very famous medical city, and so he thought, okay, well, this is like a city with like a lot of good doctors, and like this is a doctor that does nose jobs, and like they're at one of the top like hospitals or whatever. So of course I'll go to them for a nose job. Like they're a doctor, they do nose jobs, like, and they're at this good hospital. So like that's where I'll go. That's I think what most people just do. And so I don't think, especially with hair transplants, that's what I thought when I was first going in. I thought like, well, you're a hair transplant doctor. Of course you do good hair transplants. Like you couldn't. That doesn't make sense that you would be a doctor and that you would just butcher people all day long, right? But like, I think that people don't realize that. So I think for me, if I was speaking with someone and they knew nothing about this, and this is the first video they ever watched, I'd say, listen, hair transplants are very complicated. They're a long-term process over the course of your entire life because hair loss is progressive. So this is not a today or we fix it in one surgery kind of thing. This is something where we need to plan out what the life of your hair is going to be, because you're someone whose hair is dying.
Yeah.
It's almost like your hair has cancer or something like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So this isn't like we don't just give you chemo and then you're good. It's like we need a plan. Like this is going to constantly be coming back to you. So we need to make this plan, and then the second thing would be like, you need to find like one of the top surgeons. You need to research multiple surgeons. Like, I would say minimum 3 that you're looking at, that you're all comparing, so you can get an idea of like how surgeons compare to each other, right?
Right.
And then you need to look, the second thing maybe would be, or third thing would be, you need to look at like, there's 2 main kinds of surgeries, the FUE and FUT, and you need to research those surgeries and the benefits, because there are definitely benefits to both of them and the downsides to both of them. And that would be, the third one would be like the extra, because that even gets a little bit complicated. But right. I think the first thing that is surprising to most people is like, doctors are not created equal.
Yeah.
And like,
Right.
I don't mean to talk down about like doctors as a thing, but I think the statistic in the United States alone, close to 250,000 people a year die of medical error.
Yes, that's
250,000. It's the leading cause of death by accident in the United States, more than car crashes. More people die of medical error in the United States every year than car crashes.
wow.
So I mean that's like terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I just spit a little
Yeah.
bit.
No worries.
So I think those would be, this is a long-term thing. So medication, and then like really understanding that this is not just like, you don't need to just find a doctor. You need to
Right.
find like an expert surgeon and compare him against other expert surgeons.
Absolutely.
And you know.
Yep. Great
Yeah.
advice.
Okay, so sorry, we got and this says, hi Jess, both of your hair look great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, says, hey guys, what's your opinion on Bosley? I recently got my hair transplant done in Chicago.
So, Bosley's a really good company. I'm friends with a lot of their employees, a lot of their doctors. I know them by first name basis in a lot of cases. And, Bosley is the leader. They're the largest company in the world, and they do good work, So with your procedure, if you have any questions, you always feel free to reach out to us, but make sure you go back and follow up with Bosley. Make sure that everything that they had told you in regards to your 4-month, 8-month, and 12-month follow-up. Since we have this channel and we talk about it, Bosley's, more of a national company, and then there's mom and pops. That's the difference. So David and I, we align ourselves a lot more with the mom and pops, more kind of independent guys.
Boutique hair transplants.
Boutique hair transplants. The Bosley doctors, they're good doctors. They're quality doctors, and their company stands behind what they do. If I had to, just for argument's sake, talk about what I like and don't like, the only thing that I kind of look down at is that the doctor's more of an employee than an owner. So he has to do multiple procedures per day. And if he's able to handle that, and most of them are, then you're in good shape. But, congratulations on your procedure. Let us know how it goes. Always plan on 2 procedures in any given zone, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, it's like the toughest question that I get, and I'm sure Steve, it's always like once, said, you're saying, hey, what's your opinion on so-and-so? Like, people always come to ask us questions and advice after they already picked their surgeon and had surgery. And it's like, what do we do at that point? Like, you've already done your thing and made your decision. Like, we just have to say, hey, it's probably going to be okay. Like, see it through and let us know what your opinion is. You're the one who just had surgery with them. Like, and we don't want to, like, it's,
well,
there's nothing
David,
you can do.
if you think about some of our examples of, you personally have had some correspondence with some patients that went to, private doctors that are not transplant specialists that had really bad post-op complications.
Yeah.
And, you yourself, I remember you reaching out to me feeling really bad. That's a bad decision, and we need to make sure that person gets good follow-up care. Well, Bosley's a great company. Bosley, they do good work. So you're in good hands.
Yeah. All right, Jack H says, why does it seem like hair transplants never hold up more than a couple of years? Seems like you have to keep getting more and more. That's for a variety of reasons, Jack. Yeah. You want to give your take on that, and then I'll say mine.
So if your procedure was done properly, and I'm going to assume that it is when I talk to patients that have had prior procedures, there's a lot of different moving parts, right? There's the fact that what David said in the initial part of this live feed is that hair loss is progressive. So you need to either prepare for that mentally. The best way to do that is, look at your dad, look at your grandfather, look at your uncles, figure out where you're going, even though that's not 100% guaranteed. You need to be on preventative treatments. If you're not on preventative treatments, or if you're using, let's say, topicals versus orals, which are harder to use, then you should always plan on losing more hair. You should always plan on 2 procedures in any given zone. So, for instance, I just had my hairline redone, and it was done, not redone, because Dr. McGrath lowered my hairline. I'm very pleased with it, but because I'm greedy and because I lost my hair when I was 18, I look at little weaknesses in there, and I want to put a little bit more hair in there. And that's just a part of what you need to prepare for hair transplant. So I think the question you're asking is, why does it seem like these things always have to be redone? They don't. But you're going to have weakness as you grow older. You're going to have more hair loss as you grow older, whether you're on the medicine or you're not. And you should always plan on more procedures. So going into it, if you're a bald guy, plan on 3 procedures. If you've got just hair needs in your hairline, plan on 2 procedures. If you're Norwood 6 with strong donor hair, plan on 4 procedures. So these are all the things that we hope that we're helping communicate to patients from the channel.
Yeah, I think there's so many reasons that you get for more procedures. I mean, depending on how your genes are, even if you're on preventative medication, there can still be some progression of hair loss depending on how strong that gene is. Like finasteride doesn't block 100% of all DHT, you know, so there still can be some progress like that. You know, once you I was off, for instance, if we're talking about me personally, I was off finasteride for a while. So like that probably hurt some of my progress. I know that it did. Also, you see, like after a while, you have your hair and you're like, okay, I'm pretty good with it. And you're like, man, I'd like for it to be a little bit better. Like, why not go back and get another one, you know? So like, it's like, yeah, you know, I know for me at this point, okay, so I think that there's this, there's this thing that I used to have where I kind of like felt bad about like how many procedures I had, you know? And I think that's like a feeling that you kind of get as you're doing I had to do this like so many times, like I'm a failure, like my first hair transplant like didn't give me everything that I wanted for the rest of my life, like I'm a failure, or the second one did, or third one, or fourth one, or fifth one, or whatever it is. And it's like, I don't, now at this point, like, I don't care if I end up having like 12, 15 hair transplant procedures. Like, the number doesn't matter to me, you know? Like, what matters is that I'm able to have hair that I'm happy with and can afford that and go through my life enjoying myself. Like the number, it's not like you're a failure because like you're losing your hair or because you have hair transplants, you know, like lots of them. So I think that there's so much emphasis put on like, oh, look, he was able to do this and it was only like one time, it was only 2 times, and then he got all his hair back forever and ever, amen. And it's like, it's like this is a process, this is life, like this is like you're an evolving thing and creature, you know. And so everyone is totally different, and our genes are different, and like the way that, you know, the texture of our hair and what we might even be going through, who knows what our body is even going through that outside of like DHT and all those things. Like, you had a baby, I mean, my baby's mom has lost a bunch of her hair, like her hairline has come back like at least a good 2 inch, like 2 fingers, because she just had a baby. She's not experiencing male pattern baldness, she just had a baby. And like, I mean, I just had a couple of babies too and been through some of the most stressful stuff in my life, so who knows, that might have contributed to some hair loss as well. So, you know, like, we're just evolving beings. Sorry to go on a bit of a rant there, but so that's it. It's not always evolving exactly how we want, so sometimes we have to take matters into our own hands. Shekel Smack says, what do you guys think is the best time to do crown grafts? I know minimal thinning isn't a good time because of further loss, but too much would require too many grafts. I have a small spot I want to fill in. What's your take on that, Steve? So,
if you guys have watched the channel before, I'm not a big fan of crown work, although David's had crown work a few times and he's very successful with it. Why am I not a fan of crown work? You know, I'm all about making people happy. That's why I'm here to help you, and that's why David and I have built this relationship over the years, and I did my best and I feel very successful making him happy with his hair. Crowns are just not that impressive in my opinion. Why is that? Well, because it's a larger surface area, okay? And the way you look at a crown is from the top down, kind of like a cornfield when you're looking from a drone or a helicopter and you're seeing all the space. Now, you, the person who asked this question, you have a good situation because you have a very small area. The problem is that area is going to grow, most likely. So the most important thing, and you know what I'm going to say, is to get on the preventative treatments, and the best would be the combination of the oral finasteride and minoxidil. Once you've got photos, and you've got at least 6 months of photos, baseline, 3 months, 6 months, and you're not seeing that area grow, and as a matter of fact, you're going to see that area thicken a little bit, then I don't have a problem with going in there, shaving it down, FUE or FUT, and putting it in that zone. However, think about this, right? Let's just say you do FUE for this conversation. Again, going back to not being a fan of crowns, if you get off the medication and you start to get that area widened, you're going to be unhappy because why did I do hair transplant in there if now it's getting worse? Well, you went off the medication and you did FUE, which, again, we talked about this many times. FUE is and FUT is only so many grafts to yield over the course of your life, so it's kind of a waste to put hair in that area. The last thing I'll say is, and this is just me showing kind of sort of my age and kind of what I went through, is I'm all about hairlines. Everybody knows that. Everybody that watches that, I'm all about hairlines. Nobody sees the crown, and I can use a bunch of powder and makeup, and I'm cool with that. I know a lot of guys aren't.
Yeah, I mean, oh, sorry.
No.
But yeah, did mention the powder and you know, derm match and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, crowns are just so easy to fill, especially if you got any hair back there at all, to fill in with just a tiny little bit of powder and some hairspray. It's not even going to get on anything, you know. You can go, or like some derm match or whatever, especially if you're not loading up on it, you're not even going to see it on pillows and things like that. So like, it's just so easy to fix. It's so much cheaper and easier.
100%, David.
You don't use any grafts, you know, and boom, you're done.
And keep in mind that this is not me trying to set you up for failure. I really don't want to discourage you. When patients are like, oh my God, I'm 26 years old, I have really white skin, I have really dark hair, like maybe like a Pacific Rim Asian patient, and that bald spot just jumps out. I get it. They hate it. It's a weakness. Superman has kryptonite. Yes, you can have a transplant, but more than anywhere else on the scalp, you need to plan on those two procedures. You're going to go from a bald spot. Now, I know you have a thinning spot, but you're going to go from a bald spot to a thinning spot. If you have a thinning spot, you're going to go from a thinning spot to a less thinning spot. I'm never going to say, although it's done a million times and it's possible and everybody can do it, I'm never going to say that you're going to be completely satisfied with a crown, because I'm always going to underpromise and try to overachieve. Crowns, just sheer aesthetics, are more challenging. Last thing I'll say is, when I get a patient that talks to me about crown work and says, yeah, I'm doing it to stop using that powder, I'm like, not a good idea. Okay? Don't do a hair transplant. If you're using powder and you're successful with it, like David said, derm match, there's nothing that compares to that. No transplant can compete with that. So you get upset when you jump in a pool and you can see your area. If you do a hair transplant, you're going to see less area, but if you use the powder, you're going to have the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I mean, with the derm match, you can even go in the shower. Like, I've taken you know, a shower with a girl with derm match in my hair and not had any issues, and no derm match getting all in my eyes and stuff like that. So especially if you're not going like super intense with it and you just got a little bit in there, like, it's not going to be an issue. All right, so S. Miller says, if texted pics to Steve to evaluate my hair, how long should my hair be?
Yeah, so you want it long enough so I can see the weakness. I just need to see the weakness. So when you shave the head, it's really hard to see. So let it grow out. If you shave, I'm assuming you shave the head, that's why you're asking the question. So let it grow out for a few weeks, maybe 3 weeks. The more the better, but it doesn't have to be real long.
Raul says, do you see a cure for balding anytime soon?
Oh man, you're hitting home with me. So, you know, this goes back many years, and when I was much younger, I was listening to older doctors who I respect. I respect doctors. And they told me, don't worry, kid, 5 more years and we're going to have a cure for baldness. And now I'm looking at younger doctors and they're like, hey, don't worry about it. You still got time left. And you know what? It's just not looking good. I don't want to be Debbie Downer here. I don't want it to, you know, ruin the parade, so to say.
I just think betting on something that doesn't exist yet is like not a smart bet in general. You know what I mean?
You're right, David. And you know what? The reality is this: is that no matter how good we are at what we do, hopefully we're pretty good by this time, right? And how good these doctors are, and they're getting better and better and better at FUE. I'm really excited about that. Hair transplantation in itself is becoming a much more sophisticated industry, but it's still the Wild West. There's no guarantees to anything. Results vary. And with that being said, there's no big hedge funds or private equity coming into this industry trying to do cloning and hair multiplication, because there's just no guarantees, and the people with that kind of money, they want guarantees. So it doesn't look good.
Yeah. Sky B says, can an endoscopic brow lift mess up the density of a hairline? I don't know anything about that.
Yeah. Not a brow, not that I'm aware of in a brow lift. So I think I would say that the answer is no, unless there's issues with anesthesia or fluids used around it that can cause a little hair shock. If the skin was stretched anyway, meaning like this pertains more to the female facelift, well, male facelifts as well. It can cause some issues in hairlines, but from a brow lift, I'm not aware of that. No.
All right, guys. Well, it's dinner time for us, so we're going to head off to dinner. But thank you so much for showing up to our live. We're going to be going live again tomorrow, at least once tomorrow. So make sure that you ring the notification bell. Don't just subscribe, but also subscribe. Ring the notification bell, because that's how you get alerted when we go live. So you can ask any questions that you have. We're really happy to answer them. We love your questions. Sometimes we make entire videos later, like we've been doing today, about those questions that you ask. So ring the notification bell, and we will see you very soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.